Okay. In this module, we'll be looking at man-made disasters, we'll be looking at conflict and industrial failures. Now, in the last module, we looked at hurricanes and the others, but today we'll focus on conflict and industrial failures. Now, for this module objectives, you'll be able to learn how to identify the causes and types of man-made disasters, including industrial failures and armed conflict. You'll also be able to understand the response protocols for handling chemical spills, explosions, and civil unrest. You'll also be able to recognize the roles of individuals, governments, hospitals, and businesses in managing these disasters. You'll also be able to develop strategies to prevent and mitigate man made disasters through technical, social, and safety interventions. By way of introduction, man made disasters, often stemming from industrial failures or human conflict, they pose unique challenges to disaster management. These disasters are usually the result of systemic failures, human errors, or conflicts that cause widespread harm. This module covers the critical response protocols needed in case of chemical spills, gas explosions, civil unrest, and armed conflict. Understanding how to mitigate and respond to such disasters is crucial in preventing further damage and ensuring swift recovery. This module will help learners understand the various types of man-made disasters and the importance of legal and logistics framework in disaster management. Now, let's look at introduction to man-made disasters. By definition, man-made disaster occurs due to human actions, errors, or conflicts, often leading to widespread destruction and loss. Some of the types of man-made disaster include industrial accidents such as chemical spills and explosions, armed conflicts such as wars and terrorism, and civil unrest. What are some of the key challenges? There's response strategies, there's legal framework, and there's ensuring effective coordination among stakeholders. Now let's look at the first, which is the chemical and industrial hazards, checking chemical spills and gas explosions. What are chemical and industrial hazards? Chemical and industrial accidents often involve the accidental release of hazardous substances like toxic chemicals, flammable gases, and radioactive materials. Some of the causes of this are human error. Example of human error is the poor handling of chemicals, lack of training, or the failure to follow protocols. This is a very critical cause of chemical and industrial hazard. Then next, we have the technical failure. We have faulty equipment, maintenance lapses, and inadequate safety systems. So this is a part of the technical failure, having faulty equipment and maintenance lapses. Then we have next, we have natural events. Natural events can also lead to chemical and industrial hazards, such as earthquakes, flood, and storms that compromise industrial safety. Now, what are some of the impacts of this? We have immediate impact, which is fire outbreak. We have explosions, we have injuries, and we have fatalities. That means people might die. Then, for the long term, we have environmental degradation. We have health effects like poisoning and burns, and we also have economic loss for the long term. So, chemical and industrial hazard refers to this um, harm that industries have on the environment in which it lives or in which it operates in. Now, they can use chemicals that are very harmful for this environment. Now, if they are not properly taken care of or properly disposed of, these can lead to hazards. And these are the hazards that we're talking about. We look at the causes here and we look at the technical failures. Now, we move to the next. In industrial hazard management, let's look at the case study and the responses. Now let's look at the case study. Let's look at the Bhopal case strategy in India in 1984. Now, there was a gas leak in a pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, right? This pesticide plant in Bhopal is where pesticide is produced, right? Now, it exposed hundreds of thousands to toxic methyl is socan isodnet. That was the name of the ingredient that was used in producing this pesticide, this toxic metal. Now, the impact of this was that there was immediate deaths, there was long-term health issues, there was cancer, there was breathing, that is respiratory problems. There was also widespread environmental contamination. Now, what was more the mitigation strategy? Mitigation was what was carried out to curb it, like to prevent it from happening again. Now, for the prevention, there was regular safety audits in that environment. There was hazard assessment, and there was maintenance checks. There was also response immediately it happened. There was effective emergency response plans by the India government, including first responders and medical teams on the part of hospitals. Now, what were some of the long-term actions that were carried out in Bhopal? There were strict enforcement of safety protocols, creating safety that is buffer zones around industrial facilities. This is the case of Bhopal gas strategy in 1984. Now let's look at the next man-made disaster, which is conflict and civil unrest. What are some of the causes and impact it had in environment? Now, what are conflict-driven disasters? These are disasters arising from human conflict, including wars, terrorism, and civil unrest, leading to violence, displacement, and societal breakdown. Some of the key causes is political instability, resource competition, and social inequality. Some of the impacts include loss of life, destruction of infrastructure, and displacement of population. There's also economic and social disruption with long-term effect on governance, education, healthcare, and commerce. Now, an example is the Syrian civil war. There was widespread destruction, there was displacement, and there were severe humanitarian crises in Syria. Now, what are some of the responses that should be given to armed conflict and civil unrest? Now, for the response protocol for armed conflict, we have safety and security. That means you are establishing secure zones, you are enforcing curfews, you are coordinating with military and law enforcement. Now, for human assistance, you can do this by providing food, water, medical care, and shelter to displaced population. Now, for peace building, you can go with diplomacy, you can go with the conflict resolution, that is mediation between parties. You can also go for international mediation. Now, for civil unrest management, what do? You do number one, law enforcement. You ensure that there's public safety and there's prevention of violence in such areas. Now, you do what they call public communication. You issue clear guidance to public on safety measures and evacuation routes. We'll be looking at the responsibilities of each stakeholder in carrying out these things. Now, before that, let's look at mitigation and prevention of man-made disaster. How do you mitigate and prevent these man-made disasters we have been looking at? Now, let's look at for the chemical and industrial hazard, there should be safety audits, there should be risk assessment, and there should be regular equipment maintenance in these areas. For the there should be emergency response plan. There should be first aid training in this environment. There should also be community awareness programs. There should be mitigation of conflict-driven disasters. That is for the next one. There should be for this. You should promote conflict resolution. You should do peace building initiatives and dialogue. You should strengthen law enforcement and military agencies to manage civil unrest and reduce violence. Now, what are some of the stakeholders' role in man-made disasters? What is your role of individual? What is the role of government? What is the role of hospitals? And what is the role of businesses? Now, for individuals, there should be personal preparedness. That means in terms of awareness of risk, they should secure their homes, they should prepare emergency kits. Now, during conflict, they should follow security protocols, seeking shelter and staying informed at all times. During industrial accident, they should evacuate danger zones using protective gears, following emergency instructions. Now, for the government, what is their role? They should give regulations, they should ensure early warnings, they should coordinate evacuations, they should provide long term recovery support. Now, for the hospitals, they should provide medical care, trauma management, health services during disasters. Now, for businesses, there should be disaster recovery plans, there should be employee safety, protecting assets, and there's also support affected communities in the environment in which they operate in. Now, by way of conclusion, this module covered man-made disaster and its requirement for specialized response strategies that differ from natural disasters. Industrial failures and human conflict have both immediate and long-term impacts, making it essential for all stakeholders to work together. By implementing prevention strategies or measures, preparing for potential disaster, and coordinating responses, we can minimize the damage caused by these events and facilitate quicker recovery. Now, for the assessment session, go to your assessment session where you see a 15 minutes or 15 multiple choice questions, and you also be required to write a short report. That was it for Module 4. I'll see you in Module 5.